When I was here for a farm dinner a couple of months ago, you talked a bit about kind of what we've done with industrial wheat
Mm,
cultivation and kind of wheat that you're seeing does better in these kinds of practices.
yeah, yeah. This is a relatively new um, sort of area of understanding for me. Wheat in the U.S. We've been focused on farmers and geneticists. Not there's no GMO wheat, but the geneticists who are, in quotes, improving wheat over time have been pretty much only focused um, on yield.
Mm-hmm.
How many bushels or tons of wheat are going to leave a field at the end of at the end of the growth, and um, uh, and because we've been focused only on that, we've lost a bunch of the other. It turns out really important aspects of grain production um, along the way, which is really unfortunate. Wheat over time has become shorter and shorter and shorter,
And you
and
mean height and roots?
both,
Okay.
right? So that the total plant matter of from a wheat plant is significantly smaller now. It's a quarter of the size
Wow.
of the wheat plants that our grandparents and our great grandparents, when they, the wheat that was being grown for them to bake bread.
Right.
Um, wheat way back in the day came up to our shoulders,
Mm-hmm.
maybe to our mid chest, and wheat today now comes up to our shins and our knees,
Right.
um, and with far fewer roots in the ground as
Right.
well. And that part ends up being, really important when um, when we grow short wheat and then we go through with the combine and harvest it out. We're harvesting the vast majority of the plant ends up leaving the fields
Right.
and gets turned into Wonder Bread or whatever, um, and that leaves a deficit in the soil in terms of plant matter and whatnot. Um,
That feeds the soil, helps to feed the soil.
right, and you can think of it as with each successive um, uh, wheat crop, there are a few less
Right.
nutrients left over in the soil. In order to have healthy soil, we need um, a mix, the broadest possible mix of little critters living in the soil. It's bacteria, yeasts, molds, protozoa. It's all this stuff, and then the the big things we need worms growing as well, right? And then it's all the way down. We need everything.
Yep.
And it's the life cycle that's happening in the soil, the births and deaths of all of these little critters that, as they break down and decay, provides the nutrients for the plants that we are actually, going to end up eating.
Right.
So if we starve the soil, which you do with modern wheat, a little bit every single year, then eventually you have this, sort of anemic, listless soil, and you're reliant on chemical fertilizers to give you just enough to get the next crop,
Right.
just enough. Um, and that all happens as a matter of course with modern wheat.
Right.
It is the way it works. Taking a step away from that, and when we started growing older wheats, and the older wheats are up to my shoulders.
So like more heritage grains
That's
and
right.
Kernza would be an
Uh,
example, right?
Kernza is one. Khorasan or Kamut is one. Sonoran White. We have an old Swiss rye from 1457 that we grow that is fully up to my shoulders. It's
Yeah.
gorgeous, gorgeous plant.
Yeah.
We harvest off about this much of the plant. That's about the amount that leaves. Um, and then the other
Yeah.
90-95% of the plant stays.
Right.
And then we disc that into the ground, or sometimes we'll run hogs on the field and they'll trample it and mash it in. And that ends up being tons and tons of vegetable matter,
Yep.
plant matter per acre um, that's available for worms, protozoa, and nematodes and whatnot to feast on.
Yep.
We are giving them this huge buffet of food, and over the course of the winter they eat it all,
Yep.
and they go through their life cycles and whatnot, and the feel of the soil is better. It's darker in color. The organic matter in the soil is higher.
Mm-hmm.
There's it's life and vibrancy in the soil. We get our part,
Yep.
and through planning and balancing our decision making, um, the the soil gets its part,
Right.
right, and we can balance everything together.
That's a closed loop,
Yeah,
give
it
and
is.
take. Yeah.
It is. So, um, from my perspective, reverting back into older wheat varieties is one of the ways that farmers can create a win-win scenario. All of us agree that win-lose, zero-sum game scenarios aren't they're not ultimately sustainable and beneficial, right? The question is, how many win-win scenarios can we create out in the fields? Modern wheat, Shanghai wheat, is win-lose.
Right.
Older heritage wheats, wheats that come up to your chest or up to your neck, are win-win
Right.
wheats.
Right.
Yes, they cost a little bit more. The cost difference ends up being about 3 to 6 cents per pound
Mm-hmm.
between one wheat and another.
Right.
So if a loaf of Wonder Bread cost 3 cents more,
Mm-hmm.
would it be worth it to save the environment?
Right.
Probably
And
so.
our health.
And our health. Like, I'm not suggesting that we all eat Wonder Bread, right? The metaphorical
Oh,
Wonder
I see.
Bread.
Yeah.
The metaphorical Wonder Bread. But it seems to me to be such a trivial difference,
Right.
in price per pound,
Mm-hmm.
that it baffles me that someone would choose the wheat that ultimately is ruining the soil, starving the soil to death, in order to gain 3 cents per pound.
Right. Yeah, and the other piece I think that's important to bring about with that is you're talking about basically the microbiome of the planet, with having really healthy, living, robust soil,
right,
that gives not only nutrition and nutrient density to food, but also an immune system to the plants. So you're not spraying pesticides, this whole thing. It does the same thing for our microbiome as well. So when you're eating this healthy food that has nutrition and no toxins and works with the environment, you're also restoring your own health and giving your own body an immune system. So with price, it's kind of...
That's right. The metaphor is not just a metaphor; it's real.
Right.
That when we feed the soil, and it's apparent when we feed the soil and the soil has diversity, that all things will be more sustainable. They'll be better over time, and the same is absolutely true for our gut biomes. If we subsist on only what the 1950s nutritionists said that we should, white bread and margarine,
Mm-hmm.
then yes, in theory you can survive for quite a long time, but you've starved your gut biome,
Yep.
and then pretty soon the wheels on the bus get really wobbly,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually they all come off.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And,
down the road.
Yep.
Yep.
But it always happens down the road, right?
Right.
So eating things that have lots of fiber in them is absolutely important. So at the same time that we're working on the biome in the soil, we're doing the same thing in the restaurant. We've converted the restaurant into an entirely whole wheat.
Yep.
We have a stone mill, so we grow the wheat. We mill here into the restaurant, and then we're working on the pasta and the bread and the the tart shells and the all the little pastries and the
Yeah.
dessert and whatnot, um, and and it's delicious.
Yeah.
And it's not
It's satisfying.
well, it's deeply satisfying,
Yeah.
and it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel healthy. Where I'm not, it's hard to make a restaurant survive on healthy food.
With how
Um,
people think of it, right?
that's right, and we've all had like healthy pasta, and right, and it's some people are really good at that. I'm not. Uh, I really am always searching for food that is um, uh, deeply satisfying and absolutely delicious
Yeah.
and is healthy at the same time.
Right.
Not one, not the other,
Right.
both.
Both.
Right.
Which you can have.
And
Yeah.
it turns out
Yeah.
it's a challenge. It's really challenging if you're stuck in the old way of thinking.
Right.
But if you're willing to challenge yourself and spend some time searching,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.